All right, so let's dive into this world of radio technology. Specifically, we're going to be looking at becoming a radio technician.
Yeah.
You've been digging into some resources on RoleCatcher, and well, we're here to help make sense of it all, really try to, give you a clearer picture.
Yeah.
Think of this as tuning into your future career, maybe.
I like that. Um, what's really captivating about this field, I think, is that it's this blend of, hands-on work, but with technology that's constantly evolving. So
Right.
it's almost like you're working on a puzzle, but the pieces change every day.
I like that. A puzzle that changes every day.
Yeah.
So, based on what you've seen on RoleCatcher, what does a radio technician actually do? I mean, what does a typical day even look like?
Well, imagine this. You start your day in maybe a bustling workshop, calibrating this really sensitive radio equipment. Maybe it's even used for broadcasting.
Yeah.
Then later that afternoon, you're on a remote mountaintop, troubleshooting a transmitter that's ensuring, crystal clear communication, but this time for emergency responders. So you're installing, testing, maintaining, repairing
Oh, wow.
the equipment that keeps essentially the airwaves buzzing.
That's a lot. That's not your average desk job.
No, not at all.
And speaking of not being stuck behind a desk, I was reading on RoleCatcher about some pretty interesting and maybe even intense work environments. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. One day you could be working on standard, comfortable office, climate controlled,
Yeah.
and the next you find yourself scaling a telecommunications tower.
Oh,
Maybe even, maybe you're on an oil rig in
really?
the middle of the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah, this job definitely requires a sense of adventure
Yeah.
and adaptability for sure.
So you need to be comfortable with heights, clearly,
Uh-huh.
different climates,
Yeah.
and probably a bit of dirt and grime along the way. It sounds like this career requires a really unique blend of technical skills, obviously, but
Yeah.
also just like a bit of grit.
You definitely need some grit.
But what about the perks? What are some of the maybe less obvious upsides of being a radio technician?
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Our world runs on wireless communication.
That's true, yeah.
Every time you, I don't know, send a text, stream a video, even use a contactless payment system, you're relying on this invisible network that radio technicians maintain.
Hmm.
So the work they do, it really connects us globally, and that sense of purpose can be incredibly rewarding for a lot of folks.
Yeah. It's like they're the unsung heroes of our digital age in a way.
Right.
And speaking of heroes, RoleCatcher highlighted how crucial radio technicians are, especially in emergency situations.
Exactly. I mean, when disaster strikes and communication is totally essential, these are the folks, radio technicians, that are ensuring that first responders can coordinate rescue efforts. It's a high-pressure environment, but the impact they have in those critical moments, it's huge. It's immeasurable.
Yeah, that level of responsibility must be incredibly challenging, but also, like you said, deeply fulfilling,
For sure.
knowing you're making a real difference.
Yeah.
But with great responsibility comes, well, maybe some downsides too, right? I mean, RoleCatcher did mention a few challenges.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, no job is without its challenges.
Yeah.
I think one thing to definitely consider is just the physical demands. You mentioned working at heights, but there's also the potential for working in really cramped spaces,
Right, right.
maybe dealing with heavy equipment, and of course, exposure to extreme weather conditions.
Sure.
It's all part of the job.
So you need to be comfortable with the outdoors, maybe invest in a good pair of work boots.
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
This is not a desk job.
But beyond the physical, what are some other aspects that someone considering this career should, be prepared for?
Well, I think alongside those physical demands, there's the constant need to kind of stay updated
Right.
because technology in this field, I mean, it evolves so rapidly. Yeah, it does.
So continuous learning is really key.
Okay.
What you learn in training today might be outdated next year.
Wow.
And I think that can be,
Yeah.
challenging for some folks.
It's like being a lifelong student of technology in a way,
That's a good way to put it.
constantly adapting and expanding your knowledge base. It sounds daunting,
It can be.
but also exciting. Right.
Exactly. And that's where I think the excitement really lies.
Okay.
Because for those with a thirst for knowledge,
Yeah.
a passion for staying ahead of the curve,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly rewarding to see how quickly those skills, that new knowledge, can be applied.
So you're not just keeping up, you're like shaping the future,
Yeah.
really, of how we even connect as a society.
Right, exactly.
So let's talk about the skills then. What are the core abilities someone needs to excel as a radio technician?
Uh,
And I know we've talked about, adaptability and a love for learning, but what about the technical side? Right. So you're going to need a really solid foundation in electronics, telecommunications, and then that radio frequency technology.
hmm
And, it's not just about knowing how to use a screwdriver or being able to connect wires.
Right.
It's about understanding the science behind it.
Okay.
How do radio waves travel? How do antennas even work?
Right, right.
And how to troubleshoot these complex systems.
So it's almost like you're like a detective of the airwaves.
Yeah, a little bit.
You're tracing these signals, identifying the faults, making sure everything is running smoothly.
Exactly, yeah.
And, speaking of signals, can you maybe just give us an example of what that means, practically speaking, to really understand radio frequency technology?
Sure. So think about your car radio.
Yeah.
It magically picks up, dozens of stations.
Right,
Each one is broadcasting at a specific frequency.
right.
A radio technician, they understand the intricacies of that process.
Okay.
How those radio waves are transmitted and received, how the antennas are capturing those waves,
Wow.
and how all of it comes together to deliver, the music, the news, whatever you're listening to.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
It really highlights that there's a lot more to this career than I think meets the eye.
Yeah.
It's this fascinating blend of scientific principles, obviously, technical expertise, but even a little bit of magic, it sounds like.
It's true.
So someone's listening to this, they're intrigued, they want to pursue this. What kind of education and training should they expect? What should they look into?
So typically a high school diploma or an equivalent is going to be that entry point.
Okay.
But, to gain a competitive edge,
Right?
a lot of aspiring radio technicians, they'll pursue an associate degree or maybe a certification.
Okay.
And usually that's in electronics, telecommunications, or a related field.
So there are multiple paths to kind of enter this field, which is good.
Definitely.
But you mentioned continuous learning earlier. What does that look like, really? I mean, in practice, day to day, year to year?
Well, attending workshops, conferences, that's huge.
Okay.
That's a great way to stay updated on the latest technologies.
Makes sense.
A lot of professional associations offer certifications,
Okay.
and that can really demonstrate, expertise in different areas.
Mm.
And then let's not forget about online resources.
Right. Those are everywhere now.
I mean, there's a wealth of information available constantly.
RoleCatcher even suggested creating like a portfolio
Yeah.
to kind of showcase projects, repairs, that kind of thing.
That's a really good idea.
It's a great way to stand out.
Definitely.
Because it's one thing to say you can do something, but then to show it,
To prove it.
that's even better.
Exactly.
So we've talked about education, continuous learning. What does a typical career trajectory even look like for someone in this role?
So most folks are going to start in entry-level positions, assisting more experienced technicians.
Okay.
Gradually, they'll take on more responsibilities as they go.
Makes sense.
But as they gain that experience, the expertise,
Yeah.
they can advance to senior technician roles.
Okay.
Maybe they specialize in a specific area that they're passionate about.
Right.
Or even take on, leadership positions down the road.
So speaking of specialization, RoleCatcher mentioned that radio technicians can choose to focus on certain niches. Can you elaborate on that at all? What are some of those areas where someone could really carve out a unique path?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting, I think. As technology advances, so do the opportunities for, specialization.
Right.
So, for example, with the rise of 5G and the Internet of Things, we're seeing this huge demand for radio technicians who can specialize in, like, wireless networking and mobile communications.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
So instead of just, climbing a radio tower, you might find yourself really on the cutting edge of building the networks that connect everything.
Exactly.
Self-driving cars to smart homes even.
And it's not even just about the technology itself. Radio technicians who are passionate about, say, environmental sustainability, they can specialize in things like green radio technologies,
Right.
figuring out ways to, reduce the energy consumption of these networks.
Now that's what I call tuning into a brighter future.
Right.
It's really inspiring to see how this career path blends this, deep technical expertise with environmental consciousness.
Yeah.
But with all of these advancements happening so rapidly, what are some of the challenges that future radio technicians might face? What should someone, just considering this career now, what should they be prepared for?
Well, one thing's for sure. The learning never stops.
Right. You said that earlier. Yeah.
Keeping pace with these emerging technologies, it's going to be an ongoing challenge for sure.
Okay.
But it's not just about keeping up with new gadgets and things. It's
Right.
about really understanding the underlying principles and how those can be applied to solve those real-world problems.
Right. So critical thinking and problem-solving skills, those are going to be more valuable than ever, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
But beyond the technical stuff, what about the impact of automation? Because I've
Yeah.
heard some concern about, robots taking over jobs in a way.
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But honestly, I see automation as an opportunity
Okay.
more than a threat,
Okay.
really. Because as those more routine tasks become automated, it frees up radio technicians to focus on the more complex and specialized work, the
Interesting.
stuff that really requires that human ingenuity and those problem-solving skills.
So instead of replacing jobs, you're saying that automation might actually make the role of a radio technician even more important,
In a lot of ways, yeah.
allowing them to tackle these more interesting and challenging tasks.
We might even see, a rise in demand for radio technicians who specialize in areas like, say, predictive maintenance, where they're using data analysis and AI to anticipate problems before they even happen.
Well,
It's like being a detective of the airwaves, but you've got these futuristic tools at your disposal.
that's incredible. So to wrap things up, it sounds like the future of this field is really bright, filled with opportunity.
I think so.
So for someone listening who's ready to tune into this exciting career path, what advice would you give them?
I would say embrace that curiosity.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, tinker with electronics, and never stop asking
I
questions.
like it.
Because this field is constantly evolving, that thirst for knowledge and the willingness to adapt are going to be your greatest assets, for sure.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher has a ton of resources to help guide you.
Oh, absolutely.
They can help you explore those different specializations, connect with the potential employers, even help you prepare for those job interviews.
It's a fantastic resource.
It's like your own personal career signal booster.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, if you're intrigued by this idea of working with cutting-edge technology, solving real-world problems, really shaping the future of how we connect, a career as a radio technician might just be the perfect frequency for you.
I love it. And on that note, we'll sign off for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of radio technicians.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the airwaves are full of possibilities.